Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of this training. In this session we will be discussing about transactional process, how the transactions are happening in SAP systems. If you see, every SAP system work process is connected to a specific communication partner in the database level of the particular SAP instance. This partner cannot be changed. This is why the work process can only make change in the database within one database transaction. Okay, so how the database transaction happens? Let's say, let's go to this one. If you see, every screen you can see there is some PIOs and PAIs are happening, and you will have some kind of updates which is happening in the system. So that updates is in between one data transaction to another data transaction, which will have an update. So the update is happens in the database in the form of commit statement. Okay, database commit. Okay, so let's say the database system itself takes the restoring database sets in terms of termination or something like that using rollback. Okay, same like if you know Oracle DBA, this is the same method you will use. Not same method, almost the same method. Yeah, you will do a commit and do a rollback also possible within the SAP transaction database. The meaning to say, every business transactions are processed in a group, the unit group we can say. The commit statements are executed in some places where it makes sense to make that change in the database. Yeah, so it's not like every frequency, every specific frequency of time that you will do a commit statement. Let's say you do a update in a user account. Okay, then once that is finished, then we will do a commit statement. So in the middle we are not doing that. Or if you are updating a transactional data, then you will do a commit statement once that specific transaction come to that end. Yeah, so there's a logic behind each transactions where SAP makes this commit statement. As we seen in our previous session, that each particular process in the SAP system is done by work process using multiplexing methods. So what happens is it will collect all these changes over a period of time, then in the different screens, then in the end we will do the commit statement. Okay, now let us have a look into the detail of ABAP lock management. So what we will do, let us log into our system and see how many dialog work process are running in our system. Okay, let's log into our SAP system. Let's use the SAP basis group. Put the password. So once you put the password, then we log in. Now let's see how many dialog work process we have in our system. So we have the transaction code SM50. Then if you see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dialog work process running in the system, and we have one user in this client, that is SAP basis, and running this specific report, the one which we are running right now. Okay, so if any other user is logged in, then you can see which is who is running. At the moment it is released, it's still showing running because at the time when we are running, it was running this one. Like this we can see the number of dialog work process and the status of every work process. If you can see here, this is program ID. PID is the one which is coming from your OS. Okay, then the status, The reason it's a status yes, and if there is an error, then it will gives you the dumps. Yeah, what is the short term? Then the semaphore, we will come to the semaphore later. CPU time and the report. This is the program right now it is running in this particular work process. Okay, right now this user SAP basis is running this specific program, the client 001. Okay, and the action here you can see whether it's a read table or insert or it's an update. That actions you can see if you are running quite number of programs, then you can see that one. And here you can see what table is being updated. Okay, this is dialog work process. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. Now let us have a look into our ABAP lock management, how the lock management is going to work. Lock management, we are using it to ensure the data consistency within the SAP system. You must ensure the records that cannot be accessed while it is being changed by one specific user. To do this one, we have lock management system in our SAP system. So basically, if you see in a bigger SAP system, you will be running quite a number of database transactions on a one specific time. Okay, that's SAP transactions. So because of this SAP transactions, you will be doing several updates in the database. At the same time, you need to also determine what are all the datas which needs to be locked. Okay, so if let's say you are querying some data for display, you don't need to lock that. So you need to have some locking mechanism which will lock the datas or lock the records when it is being processed. So that's the reason SAP have its own lock management concept within the SAP system. So how is this been managed? Whenever there is a program is running, you have lock tables. Okay, so the program is running, the program finds that there is some lock table which needs to be maintained, meaning to say there is a record which needs to be maintained. The program maintains that entry in the lock table in the main memory of the system. So we are also seeing who is going to do this lock management. This is done by the work process NQ. So if you see, for example, a user want to execute some dialog steps, okay, then the particular work process, let's say this is the dialog work process which you want to execute some process which will have a lock table. So in that time, the dialog work process send the request to NQ work process through the dispatcher. So it will tell the dispatcher that it needs to have a lock for this specific table. Then it will create the table. The NQ work process will check the table and it will lock the table and it will communicate back to the dialog work process which has been locked. Okay. At the same time, it will also validate whether the lock entry requested by the dialog work process is right or not. Okay, let's assume that if you are doing a program if you are doing your own program, then you need to ask the NQ work process explicitly to lock this specific table. Okay, then this NQ work process also checks whether any existing locks available for this specific table and this entry. If that is the case, then it will refuse the lock. Okay. So if let's assume that you are requesting from a different instance, okay, because as we know the NQ work process is only one. So in that case, let's say this is the dialog work process which needs to have one additional lock mechanism. Then it will ask the dispatcher, ABAP dispatcher. The ABAP dispatcher in turn will communicate the message server communicates to the dispatcher, then goes to the NQ. Since it's a different system, then it has to go through the message server to communicate to this specific dispatcher which has this NQ. Okay, this is the way it works. There are actually different types of locks are available. It's not even our topic, but still it's very good to know something like write lock. This is exclusively locked, the exclusive lock. So it's fully locked for you. And we also have read lock. This is like kind of shared lock. You can, somebody else also can read the database. And enhanced write lock, then optimistic locks. These are all used in different situations. Okay, so how do we see the logs in the SAP system? If you go to SAP system, if let's go to our SAP system, and if you go to tools, administration, and monitor, here you can see log entries here, SM12. Here you can specifically specify the which table you wanted to check, and you can see the log argument, specific argument, and which client, which user. You can select like that. Or if you wanted to see everything, and say you can specify here star, then you can see all the log entries. Let's say if you say star here, then you can see all the log entries. Then select click, specify what you want to say, then say list, then you will get the list of log entries available. At the moment you can see we do not have any log entries because we don't have any users in the system. Yeah, in your practical scenario, if you go to the actual SAP system which is actually live, then you can see a lot of log entries coming and going. If you keep refreshing, it keeps coming and going. And this also one of the basis tasks to see some deadlocks. If any log entries, let's say if you lock some table and it is not been unlocked properly, then it's going to be a problem. As we seen, the NQ work process will check whether this lock entry is already exists. It's a valid lock entry. If it is already locked, then NQ work process will not allow the another work process to lock this table. Meaning to say, you locked one table, okay, and the lock is not removed for some reason. Okay, maybe there is some programmatical problem, or somehow the system got hanged, somehow the system has a problem, the lock is not removed. So that particular table cannot be updated by anybody until unless that specific lock is removed. So let's assume that you have another 10 requests want to update this particular table, then the lock entry is going to stay there and the 10 request will stay like that only. It will not update this table because NQ will check this specific table whether it is locked, then it will go back and refuse the request all the time. So that's going to be a problem. So as a basis administrator, it is important to monitor these lock entries. How do we monitor these lock entries? Or you can also think, how do I know this lock entry is not valid? So basically what we do is we go back and see the old lock entries. If let's say I'm monitoring today, I go back and see the lock entries which is yesterday and before, okay, and see whether anything is happening in this lock entry. If it is staying like that for a long time, or if it is releasing and locking it after some time, then it's fine. So if it is staying like that for a long time, then it's a deadlock. Okay, we need to understand that we can release this lock. We have to manually release this lock, and we can also check who is the user doing this lock. We can go back and check the user whether they are doing it. In most of the cases, they don't know. The user don't know. They will say I am doing something, but the system got terminated. My laptop is gone off. The network went off. Whatever the reason, the lock is not removed. In that case, you can remove this lock so that the other processes can continue doing their specific job. Okay, so let's see an example how does this lock entry works. For example, I will go to SU03. SU03 is a transaction code to change your own parameters. Now let's go to the transaction code SU3, that is /n SU3. /n means come to the root, then execute the transaction su3. Instead of going to the root and running transaction su3, we can say /n su3. Then it goes to the transaction code su3. Su3 is the transaction code which is used to maintain the user's own parameters. Let's say user details. If you like this, then it will come to this screen where you can change your name, and you can also maintain your phone number and some parameters like this. Yeah, you can do something, and you can reset the password, stuff like this. So right now I am editing this data, this specific user. Okay, then I will create one more sessions here. I will create one more session in the SAP. Then I will go to the transaction code SU01. SU01 is a transaction code to maintain user. But if you see in the other session, the other session I am still modifying this SAP basis user. Okay, and if I go to this same user SAP basis, I want to change this user, for example. Okay, it says maintenance of user SAP basis locked by the user SAP basis. Okay, we logged in as SAP basis, but the user is being locked. Okay, so we cannot maintain anything, you cannot change, you cannot modify anything. So logically this particular record should have been locked at the moment. So let's go back to the SM12, the lock entries. Okay, and let's put the username star and list. Now if you see the client 001 user SAP basis, this is the time. Then we have E means exclusive lock. Exclusive lock, which we have seen, exclusive lock means it is in the locked only for you, it's in the write mode. Okay, if you don't know the lock mode, if you want to know more detail, any SAP location, specific place, some specific field, you don't know what is this means, then you can always check the detail in the help. Okay, that for example I don't know, let's assume that I don't know what is this E means in the lock mode. Okay, keep the cursor there, then press F1. I am right now pressing F1. Then you can see there is a separate window which came in. It says lock mode shared and exclusive lock entries. The definition, what is this means that the lock entries were set to shared mode, that therefore can accept further lock entries. Shared mode background, the lock entry mode regulation where several user can access the record at the same time, what we have learned. So we can also learn it like this. If you don't know anything, then you can go and learn like this. Let's say right now E means exclusive lock. The locked data can be displayed or edited by own user only. Request for either another exclusive lock or shared locks are rejected. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, now it's locked, and the table which contains this specific data is USR04. That specific table is locked. And okay, and the lock argument is the what is locked in the table. It's not that or the entire table is locked, right? Let's say in the table USR 04 contains all the user information, so you cannot lock all the users. Okay, so the another user, the some can edit different users parameters, it is still possible. So we are locking only the specific user, that is the argument in this client. Okay, and the why we have the client here, that's because in SAP system we have seen clients. This client, each client you need to have user, specific user to log into that specific client. Right now we logged into client 001. So if you have client 002, then you need to have user in that specific client to log into that user. Now the argument says in the client 001 this user is locked. Okay, and this is the user count. Okay, if you wanted to see the details, you can select here and say details. Okay, then it will give you more details, lock entry details. Okay, this is about lock entries. Now let me go back to the other screen, and I will come back to the lock entries again. Okay, now I am not locking. I came out from the other screen. I will say refresh. The lock is gone. So in our case, we are our own users. Okay, so we know what we are doing. So it is always advisable to go and check little more further before deleting the lock, because this program which you are running may be a quite crucial program for the business. So simply it's not like, as I said, if you go and see it's a old log, you cannot just simply go and delete it. Okay, you need to really analyze what is behind that. That's what I said. You can also call the user and see what are they doing, or you can check whether the user is logged in first of all. Okay, how do we check the user is logged in? There is a transaction code called SM04. Okay, if you go to /n SM04, you can see the user who logged into the system. We have DDIC, which is standard user. We have SAP basis who logged into the system. Okay, right now we are running SM04. If it is another other user, then that particular transaction will be here. Then we know this user is doing something. Okay, in that case we should not delete this log. So we have to be little more careful, and we need to analyze the situation before doing any actions. Okay, so let us go back to our presentation. Okay, the next one what we are going to see is an update work process. So update work process. In the SAP system, a business process is mapped using SAP transaction, that we know. The data changes which is happening because of this process should be executed completely or not at all in the database, or either of this case. Sometime if let's say there is some error occurs, then we also need to make sure there is no database change at all. Okay, though this is managed internally by the system by this update process. So how does this update process works? The updating the system is a technology which allows SAP transaction to offload the database changes. Meaning to say, let's say if a dialog work process want to do some changes in the SAP system, or I mean the database, then the update work process is going to help. Okay, and this is an asynchronous process to do update work process. Okay, let's assume that you wanted to do some transaction using your SAP GUI. You log into your SAP GUI and you are trying to do some transaction. Now we want to do update. Okay, so what it does, it goes back to the dispatcher and message server, and message server goes back to update. Then it will start the update one. Let's say you are doing some changes. Once you do the changes, you will do the commit to the database. Once the commit is executed in your program, then your update process starts. Then it goes back to the update work process and say, okay, now you can start updating. Okay, so and remember, this is not synchronous update, it's an asynchronous update, because you do not need to wait, the update needs to be completed. Okay, so you have two mechanisms here. If you see, if you want to do some commits, then you go and tell the enqueue that you lock that one. Okay, once the enqueue says that you are locked, then you go back and tell, once you have modified, then you say, okay, now you can do the update. Okay, that you can see the dialog work process is specified in green and the update work process specified in red. Okay, that is the way update actually works. So, and if you see when we are looking into our SM50, there are two updates available. One is update 1 and update 2. So, okay, the update 1 is called V1 update, another one is called V2 update. So the difference between this one is V1 means it's a critical update and V2 is a non-critical update. So we can separate these ones. Okay, the critical and non-critical updates. If you go to our SAP system, go to SM50, you can see you have update and update 2. Okay, this is critical update is a standard updates. If it is a non-critical update, then you can also use update 2 to do the non-critical update. Okay, that is a advantage here. So it's about the program logic, how you want to determine how do you want to update this one. Okay, so let's see how we know what is being updated, or how does the update termination works. Okay, so to wait to monitor that update entries, you can go to tools and administration, monitor, then we should have update SM13. Okay, this is a very important transaction, the update SM13 update request initial screen. Here what we can see it for all clients. Yeah, that's very important. You can see it for all clients, all user. You can also specify by users. Here we say cancel to be updated, V1 executed and V2 executed, and you can also see all, and from and date. Okay, maximum number of records and update server, which update server we are wanted to monitor. So we can, so you can see all the cancelled updates. It will give you a very good view that is any cancelled updates available in the systems. Okay, or only V1 executed, then you can have the statistics. Let's say all here. Right now we don't have any. Okay, so we cannot see this. So if there is any active updates, then you can see the details. Okay, let's say if the update is not happening, you can also do the repeat update. Okay, so once, if you have entries here, if you want to see the detail of the specific update, then you select this one and go to the details, then it will give you the detail of the specific updates what is presently happening. Okay, there is quite a lot of features here. You can go around and see this one. When you are doing it in production, please make sure that if you are deleting especially any records, you have to be very clear of what entries we are deleting, update entries we are deleting. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. Next one is printing. The printing happens in different scenarios. Yeah, so it's not necessary it's going to be only printed. It's not only printing data, business data, which is going to be sent to the printer. It can also be sent to fax or email or SMS. Everything is called printing here, spool. Okay, spool work process. So if you want to use the printers for the spool purpose, so first you need to set up this printer in the system. Okay, then only you can use this printer. You can select a printer that can already been used if you want to print some specific document in your reports, for example. Yeah, once a printer has been set up, then SAP system has the information, it can be able to create this spool request. So when you, meaning to say, if you create this spool request, that's what we have briefly seen before. The spool request is kind of a collection of data which will be sent to the printer, specific printer. So when you are creating the spool, you need to specify which printer you are going to send it. So we need to create the printer before you send the spool request to the specific printer. So what are all this spool request contains? The spool request contains the information on the data to be output, the actual data, and what format it's going to be printed. Okay, this is very important. It's have the data, and it also will have the format and the printer model which is going to be used. Okay, and the place where it's all this thing is going to be saved, which is called the temsec. Okay, temporary sequential file, that is called temsec. What it happens whenever a dialog user want to send a request to the printer, then it will goes and it will create the spool request. Yeah, spool request means it kind of a request which has this one ID which has all this information, your data, which who's created and which printer you are going to print, and this will be saved in the temporary sequential file, that's temsec. Okay, then that temsec in turn will send the output request to the spool request, then the operating system spools or the print server, then it will go to the printer. Print request, this spool request can be created by the dialog user. Okay, let's say I want to print the invoice. I can go to the specific invoice and say going to print. Okay, that time it will create the spool request, send to the uh, spool work process, then it will go to the printer. And you can also create spool request from the background process. So the background, if you are running a program in a background mode which has some output, that also can be created as a spool request, and you can also send to the spool request spool work process, and you can process this particular spool. Okay, meaning to say the spool work process itself does not create any spool request, so it has to be from dialog or a background work process. And one more thing we need to remember, the spool request you are generating, you can directly send to the printer using the operating system spool. Okay, you can also send to the local printer, or you can also send to the remote printer. Okay, let's say if you have a print server, then you can directly send to the print server. The print server will distribute the spools to the specific printers. That is also possible. You can monitor these spools in SP02, yeah, where you can see your own spools. SP01, you can administrate these spools. So let's create a spool request, then you know how does this spool request work. Let's go to our system. Let's go back. Let's run a program. I'm going to run a program. For that I will go to transaction code called SC38. Okay, this is an transaction code to run the ABAP programs, or to edit the ABAP programs in fact. So I am going to run a program called rf para. This is for parameters. Okay, so I'm going to just run this program. Then here we will run the program called rs param. Okay, this is the program to display the parameters in the SAP. We will come to that what we will do. Right now we want to generate some output. Okay, let's say execute, and execute here. Now we have some display. Okay, now we want to print this one. Like select printer. Let's say, let me go back again, let me repeat again. If you here you can see the printer icon, or control P, and you select this, then you need to specify the output device. So at the moment we ourselves did not configure any output device. By default there will be an output device. Let's select this one. If you click here, then you'll come to the screen. If I click here, you have the selection. We have LP01. Okay, this is our printer right now. Okay, we will come to this topic again, how to create this printer in later stage. Now we wanted to show you how does this spool works. Okay, you can also specify what page to which page you want to print. meta. So we need to specify the format, but this is the default format. So now what it will do, that it is going to print this particular output to this specific printer. Okay. Okay, if you want to monitor your specific spools, then you can go to the transaction code called SP03, sorry, SP02. Then here you can monitor your own list of spool. So if you go to the transaction SP01, you can administrate the spool request. Okay, that's the two different things. Okay, let's go to the next topic, background work process. Then we will come back and see how does the work spool request is being created as well. Let's go back to our presentation. The next one what we are going to see is background work process. So first of all, we need to understand what is background work process. So background work process are some processes which would like to do it in an automatic fashion. Let's say you want to run a specific report and to be printed every day early morning 9 o'clock. Okay, so you don't need to do this one every day manually. So you can schedule a job, a periodic background job, which will run this specific report and it can be printed. Okay, that is one part of background jobs work. Or let's say you have a program which you would like to run. It is going to take a quite long time and it's going to take a lot of resources which you already know. In that case as well, you can schedule background jobs. The most of the programs, most of the transaction code which you will go, you will always find an option to run it in background. There is also exception. I will not say okay all the programs, most. There is some exception still there. Okay, that is again depends on the function of this program. Yeah, we do not go to the details into that. So if you go to any standard transaction, or if you go to most of the standard transaction, you will find the option for background process. So using that background, you can execute this program in background. For example, that RS param we executed in foreground. Okay, you directly trying to print. Let's try to execute in background. How does it looks like? So let's go back to our SAP system. Go to SE38 and let us go to the program RS param. Execute. If you say, you can see here execute in background. Okay, here you can also see execute and print. Okay, I want to say execute in background. I will select the printer here, execute. Okay, this is a format, it's fine. We will come to the background job scheduling, how does it supposed to be and all this thing. I'll simply say immediate, check and say okay. Now it says background job is being scheduled. Okay, if I go back, this is finished already. Okay, if the transaction code to check my own background job is SM37. SM37. Okay, here you can specify the specific job name, or you can also specify the users if you like, and say execute. Then you can see the status of your present program. Okay, if you see here, it says this is the program which is done, job. Yeah, that's a program which was run, and this is the user is run, and this is the status of this program. Okay, if you select here, you can also see what is the logs and stuff like this in the specific program. So now let us see how does the spool look like. Okay, let's go to some of the Volt programs. Maybe let's go to SM37. I will go and check some of the Volt programs. 2011. Yeah, we have some programs here. This means it has a spool. Okay, it generated a spool. If I select this and say spool, you can see this is the spool number. Okay, this is a spool number. Let's have a note of this 7100. If you select this one, you can see there is no record exist in the instance. This was the output of this spool. Okay, if I go to sp02/n sp02, it is not there because this belongs to somebody else. So I will go to sp01. If I go here and put the spool number 7100, then you can see this is the spool number which we have seen. Okay, you can manage the spool like this from here. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, with this we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session.